our Chase series this morning. The Chase has been, just by the number of responses I've received, conversations I've heard, and have been submitted to me, it's been the most profoundly impacting series for our church, at least in ways of people speaking about it. And we hoped that would happen because we knew we were going right to the heart of every person in our church as we began this series. And so we gave an overview week 1, and then we went into relationships, and then we went into looking at sex as a theme we chase or make ultimate in our lives. Last week we talked about success and how we don't find our identity there. And this morning we're talking about chasing money. A real light and fun and insensitive, or unsensitive, I should say, issue, right? Isn't it? It's just kind of light and fun. It's just money, right? Or it is light and fun when it's a hypothetical, right? Anyone else, I might date myself here, anyone else grow up dreaming that you would win the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes? In my childhood, just over a span of a couple years, it didn't go from 1 million to then 2 million. It went from 1 million to 10 million. I remember Ed McMahon. God rest his soul. I remember $10 million, and I would lie awake at night and just go, oh my gosh, what could we do with this? But it's very fun to think about it in hypothetical terms, isn't it? It's still fun, right? Whatever the thing is. It's fun to think about. It's also fun to think about when you're just playing a game, right? So, some of you, how many of you, because of the way you play board games, you've been excluded from your friends or family members from playing board games? We had 2 people honestly confess the first service. I got 2. Anybody else? Exactly. She's holding her husband's hand up like that. That's awesome. And so my 5-year-old is really into Monopoly and knows it well. He's got Monopoly on the iPad. He's got Monopoly Junior. He's got a card traveling game, Monopoly. But it can be a little taxing if you love to win at games, but it's pretty easy, right, when you have Monopoly money. Like, nobody's lying awake in bed going, man, spend 2 hours, how should I spend? Should I buy Boardwalk? The answer is always, if you've got it, go for it. Mortgage everything else for the sake of Boardwalk. In fact, some of you right now, you would never eat at McDonald's in a million years, but you're going there every day because of Monopoly right now. Some of you are. Don't raise your hands. Don't raise your hands. All of us are a sucker for a good game. But when it's Monopoly money or other game, you're just like, oh, this is easy. Another time the subject of money is pretty lighthearted and kind of fun is when you're spending someone else's money, right? Like, I never lied awake. It never kept me up at night going, I wonder if this is the best use of my mom's money. Right? Isn't this true? Like, my parents weren't rich, but anything I had, they primarily bought it, and I never was going, man, sugar. Is it not good if mom buys me the Reebok pumps? No, I never thought that. I was like, Mom, I want the best, and whatever you can get me. But when it comes to your money and my money, it is a little different story, isn't it? Isn't it? I mean, pastor's going to get there and confess that nobody's going to be with him in this. It's a little bit different. It's a little more sensitive an issue. In fact, it's such a sensitive issue that even in our churches, you have churches and pastors who literally are skittish about talking about this. Obvious reasons why it's a sensitive issue. But I figure if we're going to talk about sex like we did 2 weeks ago, what's money? I mean, good grief. I've kind of broken through that sort of weird and sensitive level of topics. So I want to talk to you about it this morning. Here's why I want. And here's why, if I'm going to be a good pastor, this won't make me a good pastor. If I'm going to be a good pastor, here's why I've got to talk about these kind of things. Because Jesus says over and over that what we do with our money and our stuff is inextricably linked to our hearts. In the series, and hopefully every Sunday I get up here, what I want to do is ask God through us and through other leaders in our church, so let's go after the hearts. So that's what we're doing this morning. Another thing about money, this is really staggering, even to believe, as I was studying this week, 15% of everything Jesus ever uttered out of his mouth had to do with money and possessions. Jesus spoke more about money than he did heaven and hell combined. That's astounding. He actually talked more about money and possessions than he did prayer and faith. I mean, what is his deal? Here's his deal. He knows that when you and I go, it's just money. It's never just money, is it? It's always a heart issue. It's not something separate. It's not just something sort of over there that we do with what we want to. Jesus says over and over again how we view money, how we use money, how we save money, how we spend it, what we buy, what we don't buy. It's inextricably linked to our hearts. So let's go after the heart this morning and ask God to do something for us, to show us something, maybe even to shock us into understanding what it is that he intends for us to do with this gift that he's given us. We're going to be in 1 Timothy chapter 6 this morning. If you need a Bible, raise your hands. There's some practice here at Epic. We're going to hand you your own Bible. Keep your hands up until our so eloquently named Bible dispensers, put one in your hand. 1 Timothy. And when somebody gets one of those gift Bibles, can you turn to 1 Timothy chapter 6 and tell me what page it is so we can tell everybody else? You got free coffee if you get it right. 1 Timothy chapter 6. 644. Awesome. If you don't have one of those gift Bibles, sorry. Should have raised your hand. I don't know. 1 Timothy chapter 6. 1 Timothy is obviously before 2 Timothy. It also happens to be after 2 Thessalonians. It's a letter from Paul to Timothy. Timothy's pretty much he's kind of, Timothy is to Paul what this Timothy is to me. Kind of like my child in the faith. And so, I'm kidding, by the way. He's not my child in the faith. Although, he sort of is. So Paul is writing Timothy. Timothy's in Ephesus. And Paul's saying, hey, here's who needs to be the leaders in the churches. And here's what you need to make sure they're teaching. And he gets into chapter 6, and he says, be careful for false teachers. And Paul begins to write Timothy, and he says, the reason these false teachers are spreading the things they're spreading is for their own financial gain. And so Paul's going to write Timothy and speak into the situation and say, hey, be careful of these guys, but when it comes to money, when it comes to wealth and riches, here's some things you need to know. So would you guys stand in honor of God's word, which we believe he reveals himself in the Bible? We're going to read chapter 6, verses 6 through 10, and then we'll jump to 17 and read 17 through 19. So Paul writes, now there is great gain in godliness with contentment. For we brought nothing into the world, and we cannot take anything out of the world. But if we have food and clothing, with these we will be content. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, into many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evils. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pains. Verse 17. As for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty, nor to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. They are to do good, to be rich in good works, to be generous and ready to share, thus storing up treasure for themselves as a good foundation for the future, so that they may take hold of that which is truly. You may be seated. Pray that God will use his words to speak to our hearts, to wake us up, maybe to shock us, maybe to remind us, maybe that we would begin to struggle through some of the things that he intends for us. What we've said throughout this series, as we've talked even about relationships, and our success, and money, and our kids, and our spouses, and our friends, and our jobs, and all of those things, we've said that all of these things can be incredible gifts from God. But it goes really bad when you and I take a gift from God and make that God instead. So when you make relationships or another person your God, that can go really bad, right? When you make sex your God, I mean, we saw where that can go really bad. When you make success your God, it doesn't go well because your identity and your worth are determined by whether you succeed or whether you fail. And so when money becomes a God for us, there are a few warnings. And Paul says in verse 7 something that I just want us to get our minds around. Here's how I'll say it, and then we'll see how he says it. Money will not get you or I eternal happiness. Some of us would love to find out, right? Like, just let me try that a bit. Here's why. There's a lot of reasons why it can't get you eternal happiness, but out of the text this morning, the reason money can't bring eternal happiness to you is because it isn't eternal. Like, there are a lot of good reasons, but just the sheer, like, even if you don't, like you don't have any spiritual concept, you don't care what God has to say, you don't care what I have to say, I'm not sure why you're here, but just listen up for a second. Even if it could give you some happiness, it cannot give you eternal happiness because it simply isn't eternal. Does that make sense? So he goes, hey, you brought how many things into the world with you? 0. And how many of those things are going to pack up when you go? Nothing. And so don't believe that it'll give you eternal happiness because before we even talk about happiness, let's just get the adjective eternal. It's not. That's why one of our mantras here at Epic Church is that we leverage what is temporary for the sake of what is eternal. And that's not just money, although money can't double negative there. Money has to be a part of it. How about that? It's got to be a part of it. And then he gets to the heart of the issue, and he's going to give us really a plan for how to use money as a gift, allow money to be a gift, but not make it your God. In verses 6 and 8, he's going to harp on something that we may not like this morning. He's going to talk about contentment. He said, here's what gain is. If we're chasing anything in life, we want to gain something, right? So if you're chasing success, you want to gain success. If you're chasing sex, you want to gain sex. If you're chasing relationships, you want to gain a relationship. And he says when you chase money, and he's going to talk about chasing money, but first he says, godliness with contentment is great gain. So as we're spiritually maturing in our faith, if we really want to be the kind of man that God is fashioning us to be and wants us to be, and the kind of woman that God is intending for us to be, a great discipline to learn is contentment. And then he gets into verse 8 and he says, with food and clothing we will be content. And don't you wish he listed about 18 other things? Wouldn't it be awesome if he just gave us this huge list of what we could have to be content? Because most of us, our list doesn't stop there, does it? Thanks for being honest. Let me differentiate something for you this morning. God, and I'm going to prove to you this morning, God is an incredibly good God who blesses us with more than we need to be content. So the question is not how much will God give us in our lives. The question is, what does it take for Him to give you before you can be content? Just be honest with yourself. What do you need? What's on the list? What does it take? What standard of living is? Where do you have to live? I mean, just be honest with where you are this morning. What does it take for you to simply just be content? What does it take? And then he gets into really verse 9 and he begins to talk to us. He begins to talk to us about what happens when we start chasing. And he says here in verse 9, he says, but those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare. Now, what's interesting about this word snare is that 2 weeks ago we were looking at Proverbs, and we were talking about when we pursue sex as God, when we live for sex outside of God's intention, it's like walking into a trap or like a bird going into remember the word? A snare. Some of you didn't remember, you just know where we're going this time. It's interesting that anything we chase, anything that I chase, anything we pursue after, anything we look to for our ultimate fulfillment, in the end, it's merely a trap. And the part of the deal is this morning, some of us in this room, we have never had enough money for it to become our God, and yet if you want it to be that for you, it's already your God, whether your bank account's empty or full. With me? So it's not just speaking to rich people in the room this morning who are like, hey, don't make money your God. I'm talking to all of us who may have never had the big payday, we've never been able to cash out a big account. If you, in your mind, go, if I had that, then I would be this, it's already your God, even though you don't possess it. Does that make sense? And so he goes in and he says in the rest of verse 9, fall into temptation, into a snare, into many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. Now, this is God's authoritative word, but do you need to read this Bible verse? Or can you just have lived in America the last 3, 4, 5 years and know that people who desire to get wealth at all costs end up into pain and destruction? Have we seen that? Is that why we're in? No, I don't care what your vocation is. Don't take this personally this morning, all right? I know that you're personally probably not the reason for the downfall, all right? Like, so I'm not. There's no finger pointing here. But why are we in the housing crisis? Verse 9, right? Why the scandals? Verse 9. Why the unemployment rate? Come on, answer verse 9. But it's not just verse 9 on a corporate or national scale. Verse 9 is played out in our own lives, hasn't it? I'm not saying it's true for all of us, but some of us have the credit card debt that we have because of verse 9. Some of you are working jobs that you absolutely hate because of verse 9. Just listen to your rationale. This is your pastor. I just want to speak a couple of things that listen to your life. Some of you are working jobs you hate because you say that it's worth it so that you can still live at the standard you're living at right now. And I just want to ask you, is it really? Then it's expensive to live here. I pay rent, I get it. There's no pastoral discount in San Francisco. Right? I mean, this probably where we should take an election for the pastor housing. But nonetheless, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We're not doing that. It's one of the black buttons are so big. Just kidding. Your first time we're there that day, everything's Some of you, just think about that. You're working jobs that you hate. You can't even concentrate on listening to this and you don't want to get up and do it. And the reason you're doing it, because you have to have that kind of job to pay for the kind of lifestyle you're living. And I just want to offer, there may be a better way. Can you trust a God who gives you passion that you can live those passions out? Can you trust that God to take care of you? So there's going to be hard stuff this morning, not just for you, for me too. My wife and I have been talking all week about what this means for us, and what does it mean for us in regards to where we live, or how we kind of display this principle that we learned this morning in our lives. Verse 10, it gets after the chase again. Let me tell you how strong the chase of money can be. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evils. It is through this craving, or I would even say chasing for the purposes of this series. It is through this craving that some have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many pains. Literally, when money becomes a god, not only can it bring destruction, it can literally move you away from a relationship with God. Here's how Jesus penned it in a great discourse he gave, the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 6. Just mark down verses 19 through 24. But in 24, he says, "No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money." If money's on your throne, God can't be king. You're like, "Man, I don't even know what you mean. I don't sing worship songs with money." Some of you do. Here's what I mean. When you set it up as ultimate in your life, we all have that one thing or that one person that we look to get our identity from, that we look to and we worship it and we ascribe great value and great glory to one thing. Maybe money, maybe the other things we mentioned, or maybe God. But whatever it is you look to for the ultimate joy in your life, he's saying for the love of money, some people have craved it so passionately and they've pursued it and they've gone after it so much that they've literally left the faith. Do you understand now why Jesus used 15% of his words to talk about money and possessions? Do you understand now how we can't talk about money without talking about our hearts? And Jesus is talking about worship. He's talking about relationship to a master. And he says you can't have two masters. You can only have one. And then in 1 Timothy 6, picking up in 17, he says this. He says, do not. He says, for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty. Here's what he means. For those of you who are wealthy, that's a great gift from God, but don't see yourself as the author of that wealth. Now, you may go, Ben, you don't know how hard I studied while you were out partying. I don't. Way to go in your study. But when you derive it all the way back from the beginning, you've got to ask, where does it ultimately come from? So if you go, Ben, I did so well in high school. I did those extracurricular activities, not just for scholarship. I loved them and did well in them. And I got into this school, and because I got into this school, I got this job, or because I got into this school, got that degree, got into this school, got that degree. It all goes back to who set the brain between your ears. Who gave you something to work with? I don't care how far back we go, I don't care about your efforts. I want you to reject status quo, I want you to be the best, give excellence to the God who made you. But at the end of the day, where did you get what you're using? So he says, do not be haughty as if you're the reason that you have it. And then he says, see, when we chase something, we are setting our hopes on something. He says, do not set your hopes on the uncertainty of riches. Anybody into boating at all? Any sailors in here? Anybody like to sail? Anyone have a boat they want to donate to the church? I'm willing to learn. Well, I don't understand the whole concept, but basically you have to anchor to something. So what Paul's writing in these words, he's saying, don't anchor yourself to your wealth. If it's present wealth, or if you just long to have wealth, don't anchor your heart to that. Instead, take your anchor off of that and set your anchor onto a God who is certain. And listen to the words he uses to describe God in verse 17. He says, set your hopes on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. What adverb does he use there that I find ironic? Remember adverbs we say in NLI? Richly. I've been in settings like this where people will talk about money and they're like, God doesn't want you to have anything. God doesn't want you to enjoy your life. God is a good father. Jesus says to some really spiritual religious men in Luke, he says, if you know how to give good gifts to your children, even though you're evil, how much more will the Father give those who are his? God's a good God, so I want you to receive it as a gift. But remember, things go really bad when we take a gift that God's given us and we make it eternal, when we make it ultimate, when we make it our God, right? Or when we look to it for satisfaction that only God can bring. So he gets into verse 18, he's like, here's some things to do with it. Do good. He uses that word rich again, but he says be rich in good works. Be generous, be ready to share. Store up treasure for yourselves as a good foundation for the future to take hold of that which is truly life. Saying don't buy the lie that if you get money, you have ultimate joy and satisfaction. He says use it be good, be generous, be ready to share. And so I want to give you just a few ways for money to be, because here's the question, right? How do we not obsess about money? How do we allow money to be a great gift from God and not become our God, right? Anybody else need to hear that this morning? 6 of us, awesome. The rest of you just eavesdropping on this conversation, okay? We're having fun with this. One way that we learned from the first part of the passage was learn the discipline of contentment. The reason why we chase what we chase is because we're not content. Every one of us in this room, whatever your thing is, we're talking about money this morning, but whatever your thing is, the reason you're chasing it is because you're not content. The reason I chase what I chase is because whatever I have currently in my life isn't doing it for me. So when we're not content, we chase. Again, don't buy the lie that money will bring you ultimate joy. Another thing, this might be a shift for a lot of us, learn to see God as the owner of all that you have. When the scriptures begin to speak of money and possessions, and Jesus does this brilliantly through some parables, they talk to us as if God is the owner of everything, and what our role is, what He's entrusted to us, is an earthly life to steward or manage what He's given us. And when it's all said and done, you're not going to want to hear this, okay? But I'll give it to you. I don't want you to say you've never heard this before. When it's all said and done, He is going to look at us in the face, and He is going to ask us, what did you do? What again? He's going to do that with your talents. He's going to do that with your relationships. He's going to do that with your money and your resources and your stuff. And if that answer, again, none of us are going to get this perfect, believe me. But if that answer is less than satisfying to you right now, let's open our hearts this morning to maybe God will provide or produce in us some answer that's better. How's that question going to go down for you? How's it going to go down for you? You're like, it's just this, just that. Okay, at the end of the day, He wants to know what we did with what He gave to us. And the thing that I know that probably helps the best, and here's where you may zone out, but stay with me here. Becoming a generous giver was the number one way I know to combat this issue. Of course the pastor's going there. One thing I want you to know is that our church is at a better financial place than it's been since we began. The last 2 Sundays are the largest offering we've had in a 2-week period since the church began. We are not a self-supported, completely church yet. Our church is 8 months old if you're new to the scene here. And God has us way down the road for the pace that we need it to be in this time. Alright? Know that things are going well. Of course, this is where some of you go, oh, things are going so well, I don't need me. When we become a generous giver, it shows something, it frees us from something, but it shows that we've understood what Christ has done to us. Done to us. Look at 2 Corinthians 8:9 on the screen. Paul's writing about generosity, and he throws this great description of the gospel. He says, "For you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though He was rich, yet for your sake He became poor, so that you by His poverty might become rich." He just lays this example of this beautiful passage of generosity. And he says, if you want to know what it's like to be a generous giver, let me demonstrate to you the reality of who Jesus is and the reality of what Jesus did. Now let's just put ourselves in the correct setting. Jesus is in heaven and He is being worshipped by angels and everyone else that's there. Is that a pretty good gig? Well, like, none of us have experienced it, right? But is that a pretty good deal? So He is being worshipped. He is being praised. He's got no issues. He's sitting down and everyone else is giving Him worth, ascribing glory, giving Him value, singing to Him. In one instant, He's there, rather than stair-stepping down gradually into His earthly life. One moment He's there. The next moment He's being born among the livestock. It says there that though He was rich, He became poor, so that you, though you were poor, spiritually speaking, absent of grace, absent of mercy, absent of love, through His poverty, you and I became rich, spiritually speaking. And so when we become a generous giver, it makes us look like Christ. And not only does it make us look like Christ, but it looks like, it helps us understand what it means to be a generous giver. Becoming a generous giver will free you. Some of us believe this morning that if we become a generous giver, we go further into debt. Becoming a generous giver will free you. Listen to what Tim Keller says in his book, The King's Cross. Here's how you know about money as your God, right? He says, how do you know that money isn't just money to you? Here are some of the signs. You can't give large amounts of it away. You get scared if you might have less than you're accustomed to having. You see people who are doing better than you, even though you might have worked harder or might be a better person, and it gets under your skin. And when that happens, you have one foot in the trap. Because then it's no longer just a tool, it's the scorecard. It's your essence, your identity. No matter how much money you have, though it's not intrinsically evil, it has incredible power to keep you from God. Some of us need to be freed from this God this morning. Another thing it will do is it will help you grow spiritually. We like to compartmentalize our lives and say, well, I've got this relationship with God, but then my stuff's over here, my relational or sex life's over here, and so I just kind of, but then I bring on Sunday morning, I've got this thing down with God. Let me say this really clear. You will not grow, mature, spiritually speaking, if you do not become generous somewhere along the way. Why is there so much silence in here? It's eerie. You will not mature spiritually. Like keep progressing, becoming more like Jesus. If you don't, along that path somewhere, if you don't become generous. And another reason to become a generous giver is that it fuels an eternal vision. As your pastor, one of the things I never want to do is stand up here and say, you go do this, and never share with you how I struggle with something in this category or whatever category it is. I couldn't share too much 2 weeks ago when that subject matter with the wife in the room. That would be weird. Nobody tunes. Sorry. Man, tough crowd. Man, everybody's on the edge. Jesus is right about this hard money issue. Good grief. And so here's what I want to do. I want to tell you guys. I want to tell you guys a little bit of my own story and just let you know what it's looked like for my wife and I. So before we were married, we made a commitment that we would give 10% of everything that we made. Everything that we made, gross income. Anything that we'd be a part of, speaking engagements, church, paychecks, her stuff, my stuff. She's a writer. Anyway, we just made a commitment that we would give at least 10% of it to our local church. And this is before I was on a local church staff, so there was no, in some ways, if you're wondering, of course, that's how you pay yourself. No, that was before that ever happened. And we did it when we literally were just living on love. When literally there was nothing. Like she and I were substitute teachers, and so we would get a call, and the phone was by my side of the bed, if I remember correctly, 11 or so years ago. And we were both substitute teachers, and we were just poor, living on love. Like we would look for coupons in the mail, but it had to be free. I mean, half off doesn't help if you're living on love, right? And so the answer machine in Fort Worth, Texas, where I was in grad school, it would call us, and it would give me my assignment for the day. I would put the phone away. I would wake her up. I'd be like, should we work today? She'd like, no. I was like, click. And we just lived on love. I mean, life was awesome. Life was awesome. So 10% of whatever that was, I mean, literally, it was pennies some week, no doubt. And yes, we got wiser. I don't need financial counseling for this situation. It's amazing that those days even existed. But that's how you know money's not a god, when you turn down the $530, $55 a day substitution job. And so that's just been our deal. And then we've made a commitment recently that we would increase a certain percentage point every single year. That's a recent thing for us. On top of that, we've been able to support our sponsored child in Zambia since 2004. We've been able to sacrificially at times to give generously to people who are going into mission trips or starting churches like this one or different things like this. The reason I lay this out is not to pat me on the back, because I want to give you the other side of this. It's meant that we've had to go without some things. Because everybody in here we want to do what God wants, but we don't want to do it at sacrifice to ourselves, if we're honest, right? We want to live God's way, but unless it costs us, if we're honest. We want the blessing, but we don't want the hard part. True? We do. Man, listen, and this is not so somebody would go get me a new car. I'm not about to say this. Man, I mean, listen, I need to learn how to avoid the big poles like this one in my parking garage. Let me just say that first of all. There's a reason why that dent is still there. And it's not because it shows my handiwork. Right? I'm just like, that van is not worth that. I mean, and one day you guys are going to see this 2002 Honda Odyssey, 155,000 miles on the side of the road, and you're going to know that it went. All right? It just went. Pastor's going to be on his feet because it just went. That was it. It's meant along the way that we had to say no to some things. Sometimes we look at each other during the struggle time and go, do you know what we could do with this? Do you know, Sean, what we could do with this? I get it. It's expensive to live here. I want to tell you that. And secondly, I want to reiterate this point. Our church is in a great financial place for the season we're in. So this is not, oh man, offerings have been low, pastor's bringing the money talk. I would do a disservice to you and to myself and to our church if Jesus talked about it, 15% of his words were used to talk about money and possessions, and I didn't give it to you. At this time, I would like to invite Tim Miller, our executive pastor, to come and share the stage with me here and just share with you guys a couple of things. He's going to talk to you about his own personal story in this regard that we're talking about today. He's also going to talk to you about, as his role overseeing this area of our church, some things that have been helpful and can be helpful for you.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, man. I do enjoy talking about this. This is a subject that is close to my heart, chasing money, and its opposite, using money the way God intended to be used. When I think about my personal experience of chasing money and things I've seen, observed, and done, I think I can sum it up for you in one picture. If we can get that on the screen here. This is me so many times. The problem with chasing money is it leaves people empty, confused, and desperate. It's just like the people who are climbing around this never-ending stairwell. You know, we called this series The Chase. We didn't call it The Catch. If we called it The Catch, it would apply to anybody. People who say as soon as they have X amount of money, then they'll stop chasing money or whatever they're chasing, and then they'll start focusing on the things that are most important to them. It never plays out like that. There's a million excuses why people raise the X amount, or maybe they go buy something they were expecting and then they have to get back to X. It never plays out that simple. But it doesn't have to be that way. As Pastor Ben has already shared with us, there is a better way to manage your resources, and there is something better than chasing money. It's using money the way God intended it. The Bible, as Pastor Ben has already mentioned a lot of verses, the Bible does have a lot to say about money. And the solution has always been around twofold, basically, to stop chasing it, but two, also giving, as already been said this morning. And Kristen and I we can testify to that. Giving is not, you cannot use your imagination to imagine what it would be like if you hypothetically gave. Like, would that be better for me or not? It doesn't work that way. You have to actually do it. Kristen and I, before we got married, we talked about what we would do once we're married with our income and our money and stuff like that. And early on, we made a commitment that we would, as the Pilgrims have done, have given at least 10% back to God out of the things that He's blessed us with. It has been such a blessing, really for two reasons. One, I know that we have used our resources to make a difference in people's lives for spiritual needs and also for their temporal needs. In our context, we've done that through Epic Church. The second thing is we know that we have been obedient to what God has taught us to do with our money. It brings a great peace to us, and it's hard to understand that unless you actually do it. Our lives have been so impacted. Not only does it bring us a peace, it brings us some contentment, as we've been talking about today. It brings us the satisfaction knowing that we've been obedient, increases our faith, and increases our joy. One of the things that I want to talk about next is how we can practically apply this to our lives, all of us. And for the next couple of moments, I really want to talk to those who consider Epic their home church. So if you're here for the first time, if you're still visiting here with Epic, or maybe if you're still searching for your faith and exploring that, I always want to encourage you to be a generous giver. But the next couple of moments, I really want to talk to you who consider Epic your home. Pastor Ben and I are going to encourage everybody to participate in a 3-month tithing challenge. You don't have to if you don't want to. We're not going to track you down if we don't say that you started doing this. We're not going to show up in your door or anything like that. Of course, we would never do that. But we do believe that if you do participate in this, it's going to launch you towards living a life that's focused on the way it was meant to be lived. Pastor Ben and I are asking that you participate in this. And a tithe is basically giving 10% back to everything God has blessed you with. Essentially, the Bible teaches that everything we have is God's and comes from God. He is simply letting us steward it for Him. Basically, we have to manage well the things that He has already blessed us with. Basically, when we do decide that we're going to give 10% back, it says two things. It says, I understand that everything I have has come from God, and I'm going to give 10% of it back out of gratitude. It also says that even though this will require sacrifice on my end, it will require faith, I do so out of obedience, that's what God has asked me, and I trust Him with that. Maybe you're thinking to yourself, I don't know if I can live on 90% of my income. Take the challenge. Try it for 3 months. You know, if after 3 months you don't agree that this has been a major blessing in your life, if you're like, hey, you know, I tried this whole giving God money thing, it's not for me, stop giving. You didn't waste much time or money. At the very least, and I mean at the very least, at least you helped a church that cared about its community. At the very least, you have done that. But let me give you a little insider information. For as long as I've been talking about this and listening to people's stories, I've never, ever heard anybody say that after they started giving money to God, that they regretted it or thought it was a mistake. I've never heard anybody say that. First of all, you're going to be able to have a deep peace of knowing that you have obeyed God's will for you in this area of tithing. Second, you're going to know that you've been a part of investing in something that is bigger than yourself. You have used your financial resources that you have here in this life to impact eternity. And third, you're going to know this. 1 Timothy 6:19 says, you have stored up for yourself treasure as a good foundation for the future. And this treasure, it's not money that is so temporary. As verse 7, Paul says that, for we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. So I urge all of you, use your money wisely. Make an eternal impact while you can here on earth. Before going any further, I do want to tell you one reason we don't tithe. We don't tithe because of what's in it for us. I can't tell you how much it's upsetting to me when I maybe see on TV, maybe late night or whatnot, or basically people, charlatans essentially, on TV saying, look, if you give me $100 or if you give my ministry $100, God will give you 10,000. You've seen it, haven't you? Yes. That's not what we're talking about. If that's why you're giving, if you're giving God a few dollars, maybe even a lot of dollars, so that you can have that Ferrari, or maybe that house you've always wanted, or maybe you think God is some sort of rigged slot machine where you put a few coins in and a whole bunch of coins come out. If those are the reasons why you're giving, let's be honest, you're giving out of greed. You're not giving out of obedience, faith, or gratitude. I do want to read to you a few verses in the book of Malachi, chapter 3. It's a fantastic book. It's a book found in the Old Testament. Essentially, God is speaking to the Israelites, and this is what He has to tell them. And starting in verse 7, He says, from the days of your fathers you have turned aside from my statutes, and have not kept them. Return to me, and I will return to you, says the Lord of hosts. And you say, how shall we return? Will man rob God? Yet you are robbing me. But you say, how have we robbed you? In your tithes and contributions. You are cursed with a curse, for you are robbing me, the whole nation. Bring the full tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house, and thereby put me to the test, says the Lord of hosts. If I will not open the windows of heaven for you, and pour down for you a blessing until there is no more need. Think about these. I encourage all of you throughout the week, think about this. Again, it's Malachi chapter 3, verses 7 through 10. God has called those who love Him to give back, as verse 6. Verse 8 says, contributions and full tithe. Don't make a rush decision on this, however. Here in a second, volunteers will begin passing out a little commitment form, and also a form where you can request more information. If you feel like God has been calling you for a while now to begin giving, like this is something you kind of just been putting off, we encourage you to take that next step in your faith, even today. If this is a totally foreign idea to you, perhaps you didn't even know that the Bible even spoke on giving, or you haven't really thought or prayed about this much, take this card back with you this week. Be praying about it. And if you are on board, and if you're like, hey, this is what I need to be doing with my finances, bring the card back this week, or email us, let us know that you're on board with this. We want this to be an act of worship, an act of obedience and faith. We don't want it to be a compulsive decision. So please pray through this. Talk to your spouse about that if it applies to you. Because again, we want it to be a well-calculated decision. And we believe if you do begin this 3-month challenge, it's going to launch you towards, again, refusing to chase money, but rather using money the way God intended to be used. And finally, chasing money is a subject close to my heart. And as the executive pastor here at every church, one of my main responsibilities is overseeing the finances. And I get to have lots of conversations with people and observe things. And lots of people use their money wisely. And lots of people use their money foolishly. I want to encourage all of you to use your money wisely. Use it to make eternal impacts. And I want to help you with that in any way that I can. One way I'd like to help is by, on that little commitment form that you now have, you'll you'll see this little book here. Yeah, we'll go ahead and pass that out. You can sign up for this. We like to mail this to you. You'll see a little box there. Check that box. On the back of your card, write your mailing address. We'll send you one of these. We promise you we won't put this into our internal mailing list or anything like that where you get something every week. It won't be like that. We just want to get this into your hands. We think it's a valuable book. Ben and I both read it and we found it very valuable. And again, we just want to get this into your hands. The third thing that I'd like to be able to help you with personally would be I'd love to even sit down and talk to you on a more personal level. I'd love to grab coffee or breakfast or lunch with you one day and just kind of hear your story, share you more about how God has been faithful to Kristen and I as we've given, tell you a testimony of others, family, friends, people we've met who have given generously and how God has been faithful to them. So if you would like to talk more about that, I just want to make that available, let you know that this is something that's important to me, and I'd love to help you down that journey best I can. And finally, I do want to leave you with just one final thought. That as you're thinking about the next steps in your faith and when it comes to giving and whatnot, one thing I've always found to be true is that God always takes care of and blesses those who seek Him. When you're seeking God, God will take care of you, and that includes the areas of giving. Thank you very much.
Tim does a super job in our church and our staff with this issue. And if we're about to land this thing in two ways. We're about to land this message this morning, but we're also about to land this series. And so I just want to say a couple of things before we close this out. This whole series has been about two things primarily. When we chase something, when we see something as God, what we're doing is ascribing worship and saying that that is the most valuable thing in my entire life. And in the universe, we believe that that's the most valuable thing there is. The second thing we're doing when we're chasing something is that we're looking to these other things to be for us and to do for us what only God can do for us. Again, we've gone after the heart in this series. I've heard more feedback I've heard people rediscovered themselves. We've heard that throughout the series. We've heard how people are trying to get a grip on the relational stuff and the success piece and finding their identity. And then this morning, we want to be of help to you. We did not start this church to keep things at a surface level. We do not want you just to go, the music was fine, learn a couple good thoughts for the week. Because if God doesn't get a hold of our hearts, then we've done you an incredible disservice. Throughout this series, I've sensed and heard things from you, and I see some of you wanting to really let go of where you're holding on to and what you're setting your hopes on. And I just want to encourage you to take that step this morning. Some of you are still going, I don't know if I can do this. This or that has been my main thing, and it's been my whole life. In fact, some of your entire lives are set up to pursue this one thing, right? Some of you are in San Francisco because of the success I did. Some of you are in the field you're in because of the money I did. Some of you are doing crazy things on the weekends that are going to get you in trouble and are against God because of the sex deal being your God. I don't know what it is, but I know that some of you are going to live your life down the road with regrets if you keep chasing those things. So that's one thing. Secondly, quit looking to things to give you what only God can give you. He's worthy of our worship, and He satisfies. And again, just as Tim said, hey, take this 3-month challenge regarding your giving and your money, and let us know if it doesn't work out for you. Overall, as we conclude and kind of land this series right here, why don't you take the trust challenge? At the end of the day, it comes down to this. This is kind of a radical thing, but I want to be serious about it. If you can trust God with anything, you need to trust Him with everything. And if you find that you can't trust Him with everything, don't trust Him with anything. It sounds easier said than done, but I'm not saying don't struggle with it. I'm just saying if you can't trust Him with one area or 2 areas, don't trust Him at all. But if you can find Him trustworthy, go for it. Embrace Him. Let go of all the other things that you're clinging to. Because can we be honest with ourselves? Has it done it for us yet? Has it done it for you? Is it working? Is it worth it? Would you guys pray with me? I want to pray specifically for a couple of categories of people in this room. First category are people in this category. People in this room that have been, you felt inspired somewhat or motivated to finally let go of the thing that you're clinging to. And I just want to encourage you to let go. You can just say to God this morning, God, I have chased all these other things, and They're not worthy, A. And B, God, they don't satisfy me. And just repent, which means to turn from those things. Turn towards God. Ask Him to be your Savior. Ask Him to be what is ultimate in your lives. And He will meet you right where you're at. It's not about knowing all the answers this morning. It's certainly not about bringing a perfect life to Him. And then there's Christians in this room that have segmented this part of our lives. And we just can't do that anymore. We just can't. We can't do that. This is a heart issue, not just a stuff issue, not just things. So if you're a Christian, I think the step probably is, all right, God, do I trust you? God, if it requires sacrifice, do I trust you? What's on your list that it takes for you to be content? I'm going to pray for us, and then we'll be close to closing the service out. But I want you to begin thinking this week about how this series in general applies to you. God, I thank you for your word, and I thank you, God, that you're not looking to take good things away from us, God. You're looking to give us something better. So, God, you're able to pry our hearts away from things that are less than God. You're able to allow us to use these gifts. God, you have blessed us with money. You've blessed us with relationships. You've blessed us with success. But God, may those things not be our God. God, I pray that you will do something unique in our church because of what you've done in our hearts this series. I pray that we would lead the way in our city and in the world, saying, hey, there's something better to put your hope in. Go be successful. Give your best. But don't let that be ultimate. God, would you do a great work in our hearts and in our church? In Jesus' name.